G'day guys, it's Curly from Curly's Quad Shed Down Under, and welcome to part 5 of the Mizuno LXT Unobtainium soccer boot build. Now, last time we left, we had put in the T-nuts and I placed them in, but we also saw that some of the T-nuts and some of the bolts, so obviously some of the T-nuts hadn't seated all the way down. If you can see that from there, it's a bit hard to see. You can see the T-nut is not all the way in, and also the bolts are sticking through. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One, obviously the bolts are too long for some of them. And the other reason is the shaft on the actual T-nut itself can be too long. So you need to trim. So the way to do those, there's a number of different ways. And the most common or the most easiest way is to try to obviously trim down that T-nut. So what we've done, we've tried to, the reason you'll find that what happens is as you start to tighten down, you'll get to the point where you go, I can't tighten anymore. You don't want to tighten too hard, but it's like it's really tightening up, but it's not pulling in. So obviously what's happened is the shaft has come all the way through the boot and is now hitting the plate. So what you need to do is obviously trim off the shaft. So I'm going to put the camera down and we'll try and explain that a little bit better and clearer, and we'll see what we can do from there. Okay, so you can see the ones at the back. Get that tongue out of the way. You can see the ones at the back. The T-nuts, or you probably can't see them, but believe me, the T-nuts have actually pulled down all the way, so they're nice and flush. They're nice and flush with the actual the sole of the boot, the inside sole of the boot, but the bolts are obviously sticking all the way through. Now that's a pretty simple solve. We just take them out and we see how many turns. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. It's about 6, maybe 6 turns. So what we would do for that one, for that particular one, what we would do was actually just get the ratchet going. We would back that out, and you can either trim it down, or you might have shorter bolts that you can use. Now, I tend to buy bolts that are always a little bit long, so I can trim them down, because you can always trim down bolts, but you can't always lengthen them. Well, you can't lengthen bolts. So that needs to cut down by about 6 threads, but also I could try and put a shorter one in. If I have a shorter one, I can try and put that in. I think this one will probably fit. So if you do have shorter ones, yeah, all the better. Is about an 8 mil. Once again, just be careful with cross-threading. Excuse me, cattle. All right. All right, so I was lucky on that one. I was able to use the shorter bolt, and then now you can see that the bolt is not coming through. It's not coming through the boot. It's nice and flush. It's probably 2 or 3 turns with threads before it would come through. So that was lucky in that one. I was able to use a shorter bolt. So it's always good to have a range of bolts that you can use. You get them in different lengths. I think these are these ones here are about they're about 16 mil, and the shorter ones are a 10 mil. I think I have seen shorter as well. These ones are a bit shorter again, I think. They're about 10 mil as well. So if you do happen to have shorter bolts, all the better. So I'll just take that other one out now. And we're going to replace it. With a short one. So that's good. So now I've got 2 bolts in there. The T-nuts are set all the way in, and the bolts are obviously not poking through. Now, what happens if you don't have, if you've done that, you pulled that down, but the T-nut is still sitting up? Well, as I said, the reason the T-nut is still sitting up is because of the actual T-nut, the shaft of the T-nut has come through the boot and it's hit the plate, and it's stopping from getting pulled in further. So there's two ways you can do it. You've got to drill the plate. You can drill the plate, which I've done in the past, to accommodate the 8mm drill hole through the mounting bolt, and that allows the shaft of the T-nut to pull through the actual plate. But I understand you might not want to do that, and I haven't done it on these ones. I have done it on some other plates I have in the past, but I haven't on these ones. So what we need to do then is obviously take out the T-nut and trim it down. There is some instances where maybe the actual prongs on the T-nut are pumped through the boot, but usually that's not always the case. The only reason you take the prongs off really is because if you have a hard sole. So I'm just going to take out what you do to get the T-nut out, undo it, push down. You can see how that clicked down, and what that did, that pushed the T-nut out. And so the T-nut, unthread that. So what I need to do is now trim down the shaft. So what I usually use a Dremel, and make sure you wear safety glasses. I find Dremel is the best thing. This little Ryobi Dremel is good because it's sort of it's a cordless one, so it stops you from going all over the place. And I need to get a battery. Yeah, so this little Ryobi Dremel, or it's not really a Dremel, it's just a rotary tool. Takes 4-volt batteries, rechargeables, so it's quite handy. And the reason I use that is because I don't get a cord in the way. That's good. It does have a cut-off. If you go too hard, it will cut itself off. But overall, it's pretty good. So I usually get a pair of grips. I still can never remember what these ones are actually called. No one's ever picked me up on what these are called. They're not a multi-grip. They're a clamp. Anyway, I tend to like to use these because it gives you a nice firm grip. I just grip it on a corner and do it up so it's nice and tight. Just got to adjust down till it clips. There we go. It's nice and firm. And then I cut down. I'll cut down probably just to the top of the T-nut, of the actual top to the top of the prongs. Now, there's a bit of sparking. That's why you should always wear goggles. Try and cut nice and straight. Try and get this in the camera a bit, but I'm trying to also get away from the spark. Just take it slow. So there you go. I've now cut down the T-nut. So it's still got 3 or 4 threads on there, but it's actually just to the top of the actual prongs. I think a couple of the prongs got cut off a bit there, but that's fine. Careful, it is going to be hot. So what I'm actually going to do is just use one I cut down before to demonstrate. So here's one that's been cut down previously. Now this does have the prongs off it, but that's not going to matter for now. So now we just put our bolt back through. Now, I also know that it's going to be that bolt that was too long, so I'm going to use the short bolt on there. Put the T-nut in. Now, it's not a black one. See if I can find a black. I don't think I've got any more short black ones. Well, I do somewhere. I must have. So all I have to do is, just for demonstration purposes, I'll use the silver one. But then I'll replace it with a black one later on when I trim them down. You don't need to see me trimming down bolts. It's basically the same method. Now, we're just going to make sure that that T-nut, because I cut it, that the thread is good. Okay, that thread's pretty good. It's taking. T-nut is pulling down. I can feel it pulling down all the way in. And the bolt, so the bolt is now seated nicely, and the T-nut is now pulled all the way into the boot. T-nut is pulled now all the way into the boot, so it's nice and flush. And the bolt is probably a little bit still sticking up, so I might just need to trim that down a little bit as well. But it's only up a very slight bit, so once you put your inner sole in, you probably won't feel it anyway. All right, guys, I hope that explains a couple of things there. I know it's always hard to show things on camera, but basically, like I can see, when you... I'll turn the camera back up. Okay, guys, hopefully that was as clear as mud, as usual. So, but basically, look, the bottom line is, if your T-nut shaft, if your nuts are too long, your bolts are too long, trim them. And if the shaft on if you find that your T-nut is not pulling into the boot, there's two reasons. Either the sole's too hard and you need to trim off some of the prongs, or the shaft is too long and what's doing is coming through the sole and it's hitting the plate. So there's options, obviously. The options are to obviously, options are obviously to trim down your T-nut shaft so it doesn't pass through the sole of the boot to hit the plate, or you could drill out your plate with an 8mm hole so the shaft passes through, like this one here. Oh, let's see, let's get this shaft. What I've done on this plate, you can see that the shaft passes through the plate. So what happens is it pulls through into the plate a bit, and then you can use your bolt that way. It doesn't go all the way through, but it passes through, so it's sort of almost like a locating pin for your plate. And you don't have to countersink your plate. You can use button head bolts, as you can use the button head. So that's the countersink things, but you can also use button head bolts, which are quite nice as well. The button head bolts are quite nice. They look really good, and have a little washer underneath if you want. Just raise it up. I use a small washer under my button head bolts like that. There's a little washer there. And so what happens is you would have a plate. That's the Zeus. It passes it through the plate. So therefore you see it's a nice little button head bolt there. It's nice, quite nice, a nice look as well. So like I said, you don't have to countersink your plates. I mean, you obviously couldn't countersink them because they've got the slotted mounting hole. So there's options. There's always options to do. And like I said, there's no perfect way. There's no exact way. There's no correct way. There's always problems to solve, but most problems are solvable. So anyway, once again, hopefully that was clear as mud. If you have any questions, please ask on this video. You can ask questions in my in Curly's Quad Shed Down Under, either the YouTube channel or the Facebook page. I'm always happy to answer questions. Plenty of people are always sending me questions on stuff. And if I have a video on it, I'll send it to you. And if not, I'll try and make a video on it, or at least try and explain things. All right, guys, have fun. Have fun skating. Have fun building. And like I said, any questions, just ask. Get those T-nuts happening. All right, guys, take it easy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for part 5, which is going to be how I put the wedge in. So I was going to do it this one, but the wedges is another thing. So I have some thoughts on wedges, and I'll explain why you use them and when you use them and what you can use, hopefully. All right, guys, take it easy, and thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.